News now on the IRS and reports that the agency has pointed to what it calls 2 rogue employees who did all this to conservative groups. That's not what the IG found.
Was supposed to happen in a reasonable amount of time. Do you think that these were just some low-level folks, or do you think it goes higher than that?
I simply don't know at this stage. We have not begun we've only begun our investigation, and I think it will take us time to determine exactly who was involved in these matters. One thing I would say is that this whole notion of these 501c4 groups, I think that some, inquiry into that area is appropriate, but it has to be done in a way that does not depend on the political persuasion of the group.
Let me ask you this. Who does the Cincinnati IRS office, for example, who do they answer to?
I assume that ultimately they answer to the folks here in Washington.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sensenbrenner referred a little while ago to the Truman's buck stops here reference, and I'll just conclude because I'm almost out of time, by saying that I believe there's been a pattern by this administration in not taking responsibility for failures, avoiding blame, pointing the fingers in somebody else's direction. Would you agree with that?
No.
I thought.
Taking notes, sorry. Wow. That was more breaking news as Congressman Steve Chabot of Ohio questions the Attorney General over who is ultimately responsible for the IRS targeting conservative groups for years, dragging out their applications seeking tax-exempt status for months and months and months, and in some cases for 3 years. That has a chilling effect. Doesn't really inspire you to keep pressing for your tax-exempt status. And in fact, it did chill a lot of organizations and led 63% of them to either abandon their applications or just to sit and wait for months and months and months. The DOJ is now in charge of investigating this controversy at the IRS, but already we're hearing suggestions that this may need a special prosecutor, because if there is a link to the White House or elsewhere, can we trust the Attorney General to fairly investigate that? Dana Perino is a former White House press secretary to President George W. Bush. She is co-host of The Five right here on FNC. Lots to talk about in just that answer right there. There is a report from another network, not yet confirmed by Fox, that the acting director of the IRS is saying this was just 2 guys. It was 2 guys in Cincinnati, rogue employees, not yet confirmed by us. Let me show you what the Inspector General concluded. Okay, it's on page 5 of the IG report, footnote 14. I have it right in front of me. Initially, read it for yourselves, the team consisted of 1 specialist, but it was expanded to several specialists in December 2011. IRS Washington referred to this team as the advocacy team. This is the team that would be reviewing the conservative-leaning applications. Now, do you use the term several to describe 2?
No.
I mean, this is an attempt to downplay. And the thing is, Dana, they had hundreds of applications to review. And not only did these, whatever the team of specialists involved, it was raised with IRS management in June of 2011. And Washington directed that they stop doing that. And then they did it again. And then Washington stepped in again. I mean, they had knowledge that this was an issue going back to June of 2011, knowledge beyond the team of specialists.
If it is only 2 guys, then those are the most effective and productive 2 guys in government, and we should want to have them cloned and then turned into good people. If I were none of this is adding up, because if the IRS knew about this for 3 years, then have they been lying to Congress for 3 years? If the IRS
well, it's who in the IRS, at what levels, and if the commissioner didn't know when he testified in May of 2012 or March of 2012, why didn't he know? Twice before that, this had been raised inside the agency as an issue. There are these guys, the team that's doing this.
Not only that, there's an office in the White House called the Office of Cabinet Affairs. So that is a person that liaisons with all of the different cabinet agencies. And you're supposed to have two-way communication. You tell me what's going on from the White House, and you tell me what's going on in your agencies. Don't care if it's bad news, and we'll send it back and forth. If nobody at the Treasury Department under Geithner and now under Lieu was apparently raising the alarm bells at the White House to say, you are going to have a big problem on your hands when this IG report comes out. In fact, President Obama in his press conference Monday says, I learned about this from news reports. That is outrageous. The only reason he put out that very strong and very good statement last night is that they realized there is going to be an overwhelming negative response from the public and the press on this, and now we're going to have to do something about it. So that's why I think the question of whether or not the Obama Justice Department should be the ones investigating the Obama IRS scandal, I can see why people would say that sounds a little bit fishy and probably does not give people the confidence they need to believe that it will be done fairly.
Well, and there's the question of, you heard Eric Holder reference, I do think we should be investigating or taking a look at these 501c4 corporations. Now, what is that? That always gets confusing, doesn't it, when you use these letters and these numbers? What is it? The Inspector General report goes through that in detail. There's 501c3s, and those are true charities that want to be tax exempt. Then there's 501c4s, which are sort of social advocacy groups. They're allowed, like a Crossroads GPS, I think, American Crossroads, a Carl Rose group, they're allowed to advocate for issues. They're allowed to take donations that are tax exempt and advocate for issues. They can't directly support a political candidate, but they can advocate for issues. And the government, President Obama, doesn't like these 501c4s, and he doesn't like their ability to spend to the extent that they can spend thanks to Citizens United. And so now you hear Attorney General Eric Holder saying that is an issue. Should he really be going there in the wake of what we've just seen the IRS doing to these conservative-leaning 501c4s?
What I read yesterday in Commentary magazine, Jonathan Tobin has a piece explaining why Citizens United should not be to blame, and I encourage people to look at it. I wish I would have printed it out. I didn't know that Eric Holder would say that. Remember also, though, that whoever it is at the IRS, the several people or the two people, whoever it is, they actually give, before they're approved, information from groups that have applied to a 501c3. A charity called ProPublica, that it calls itself, it's a news organization, charity or something.
But you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to give
an
applicant's information.
That is absolutely chilling. And it's surprising. The DOJ scandal with the AP, that has reporters with they're on high alert.
Yeah, but because I don't want Eric Holder listening to getting my cell phone right. He didn't listen, but they have your records.
The fact that these two things happened on the same week has, I think, people who already had a distrust in government or even a healthy skepticism of government, all of those concerns have been reaffirmed. I think President Obama is looking at a longer-term legacy problem if they don't get in front of this and make it very transparent, very independent, and promise to do something radical to change it.
How does this affect the midterm elections? Because I think it's going to be much harder now for the president and the Democrats to go out there and say, kick those Republicans out of the House. We want to control all branches of government, and you can trust us to do that, because we wouldn't be having any of these investigations. You know, we wouldn't be having ISA looking into Benghazi on Capitol Hill and so on if the GOP didn't control the House.
The Democrats' hope was that they were going to be able to carry forward a message that Republicans are only obstructionists, and that if only they could get out of the way, then President Obama could do what is needed to improve the country, especially when it comes to the economy. You could see a scenario where all the stars align and he gets immigration reform and he gets a budget and they get the grand bargain. But you could see the opposite as well, which is everything completely stalls and the Tea Party that they hoped had gone away. Actually now, if they were disparate groups before, they're even more aligned now. It doesn't mean they have to agree on everything on the right, but they will be energized, and you will see, I think in 2014, Democrats trying to figure out how far away from the president and health care reform and these scandals do they have to get in order to get reelected. There will be, it's not much time left, actually. It's a year. A lot can happen in a week, as we saw.
But you've truly made victims out of it. I mean, the Tea Party has truly been victimized in a way that's just grossly unfair, and the IRS has admitted it.
Only the Obama administration could unite the press and the Tea Party in 1 week.
Now there's a question about how far this goes. Do we need an independent counsel? Are we going to investigate this? We know that they've crossed an ethical line, but have they crossed a legal one? Let me show you what John Boehner, Speaker of the House, said earlier today.
The IRS has admitted to targeting conservatives, even if the White House continues to be stuck on the word if. Now, my question isn't about who's going to resign. My question is, who's going to jail over this scandal?
Strong words, and he meant to deliver it in that way so that it was stark enough that people understood, I take this maybe the most serious thing he's ever taken as Speaker of the House. On the question of a special prosecutor, I believe the administration will resist that as much as possible, because if they were to allow for one, even though I actually think in the long run it is in their interest to do so, by allowing one now, that would be admitting that the scandal reaches outside of the IRS, that there was some sort of influence or intimidation.
And right now
or
there is not
encouragement.
evidence of
There
that.
is
We
not.
should underscore to the viewers. The IG report says that the IRS employees interviewed for the report, which is not a favorable report for the IRS, that they said no one outside the IRS
When
was
you
involved in
think
this.
of government bureaucrat, do you think innovative, amazing, forward-thinking, let's go and get these guys? No. That is not what you get, in particular, in a field office out there in the country. These are usually just hardworking people that go in, do their job, and they're given direction from Washington. I think it will be interesting to see if the direction to target conservative groups was not explicit. It was certainly implied. By the beginning, when you showed the Supreme Court having to sit there and listen to President Obama lecture them on the Citizens
and then the
United
rise of the
case.
Tea Party and the backlash against them.
Think of all the things that they have said. If you added all of that up together, you could understand why somebody in government would think that, oh, we should go after these people.
And I just want to tell the viewers, because you need to know, they keep saying, oh, it's the Cincinnati, it's these guys in Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the headquarters for the IRS for processing these requests for tax-exempt status. It's not just like, oh, it's one of our field offices. This is where your request goes. It goes to Cincinnati with oversight from the IRS Washington. And this report condemns both of them. The IG report condemns both of them. It's not like, oh, Washington IRS was exempt. They were supposed to be overseeing. And they talk about the gross management that went on here and the lack of oversight. I don't know whether this is going to turn out to be a lack of oversight problem or an oversight and we blessed it problem, but we need somebody who we can trust to look into it. I'll give you the last
They are
word.
facing a crisis of a collapse of confidence in government that was already wearing away, and they will not be able to get anything done if they don't figure out a way to pull all the way back, make it very open and transparent, and answer the questions slowly and methodically. I think the IRS was too quick today to come out and say, oh, it's only a couple of guys. I think they need to digest this report, say that they're on top of it, and appoint somebody independent to look at it.
That's what John Stewart is saying. You're giving the conspiracy theorists validity. You know, you're validating their concerns. And I think of the T-shirt that I've seen online, which reads, "What if Glenn Beck is right?"
Yeah.
And he's
Hey, look, even a
been
broken
warning
clock is
about
right
this.
twice a day. And now the conservatives have been proven right. I want to have confidence in government, but this is it shatters you inside.
I mean, listen, it's lengthy, but it's pretty easy to read and understand.
And it's
So
unbelievable that the president learned it from press reports.
Is it literally unbelievable?
In my experience, that would be unbelievable.
Dana, thanks for being here.